The SUVs rolled in like a military convoy. Malik Rivers stood frozen on his sagging front porch, coffee mug trembling in his hand as the first black vehicle turned onto his street. Then another. Then three more. The rumble of engines shattered the pre-dawn silence of the Atlanta neighborhood, sending dogs barking and porch lights flickering on up and down the block. 50 vehicles. Malik counted them as they lined both sides of the cracked pavement, sleek and identical, their tinted windows reflecting the pale orange glow of street lamps. Men in dark suits emerged from the doors, straightening their ties, their faces unreadable masks of professional seriousness. His heart slammed against his ribs. "Dad?" Jalen's voice cracked from the doorway behind him. The boy clutched his worn basketball, knuckles white. "Dad, what's happening?" Malik couldn't answer. His throat had closed up. The lead vehicle's door opened, and a woman in a charcoal suit stepped out, her heels clicking against the asphalt with sharp, deliberate precision. She carried a leather folder. Behind her, men with badges and cameras followed, their presence screaming authority and consequence. But here's what made it worse. The neighbors were watching now. Mrs. Chen from across the street pressed her face against her window. DeAndre from 3 houses down had his phone out, recording. Malik felt the weight of their stares, the questions already forming in their minds. What had he done? What trouble had he brought to their street? The woman in the suit stopped at the bottom of his porch steps. Her expression gave away nothing. "Malik Rivers?" Her voice cut through the morning air like a blade. "Yes, ma'am?" The words barely made it past his lips. She opened the folder, pulled out a document, and Malik's vision blurred at the edges. This was it. Everything he'd been running from, everything he'd tried to protect Jalen from, it had finally caught up. The eviction notice, the unpaid bills. Maybe they'd discovered something about Mr. Hargrove. Maybe someone had twisted his daily visits into something criminal, something ugly. "We need to speak with you about your relationship with Cornelius Hargrove." The world tilted. Jalen dropped his basketball. It bounced once, twice, then rolled into the dead grass of their yard. Behind the woman, more suits were assembling. A news van turned the corner. Malik recognized the channel logo, local news. Someone had tipped them off. This wasn't just official business. This was public. This was his reputation, his son's safety, everything he'd fought to build, all crumbling in front of cameras and strangers. "I don't understand," Malik managed, setting his mug down before it slipped from his shaking hands. "What's this about?" The woman's expression shifted, just a fraction, something that might have been sympathy or might have been pity. Malik couldn't tell which was worse. "Mr. Hargrove passed away 4 days ago." The words hit like a fist to the gut. Malik's knees buckled and he grabbed the porch railing to keep from collapsing. 4 days. 4 days since he'd knocked on that heavy oak door and gotten no answer. 4 days since he'd left the breakfast basket on the step, telling himself the old man was probably sleeping in, probably needed rest. 4 days since he'd failed to check closer. "The legal team has been trying to locate you," the woman continued, her voice softer now but no less precise. "There are matters that require your immediate attention, time-sensitive matters involving Mr. Hargrove's estate and explicit instructions left in his will." Estate. Will. The words bounced around Malik's skull without landing anywhere that made sense. "I just brought him breakfast," Malik whispered. "That's all. I just wanted to make sure he ate." The woman looked up at him then, really looked at him, and something in her eyes made Malik's chest tighten with a fear he couldn't name. Behind her, photographers were positioning themselves. Reporters were checking their microphones. Whatever was about to happen, it was going to happen in front of everyone. "Mr. Rivers, I think you should sit down for this conversation." But Malik couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything except stare at the folder in her hands and wonder what words were written inside that had brought 50 SUVs to his door at dawn. Jalen stepped closer, his small hand finding Malik's. "Dad, I'm scared." "Me too, son," and meant it with every fiber of his being. "Me too." Would kindness be enough to save him now, or had he crossed a line he never saw? 27 years old, and Malik Rivers had already lived 3 lifetimes worth of tired. His alarm hadn't gone off. It never needed to. His body woke at 4:30 every morning like clockwork, muscles protesting before his eyes even opened. The mattress springs groaned as he rolled off the bed, feet hitting the cold linoleum floor of the bedroom he shared with Jalen. The boy was still asleep in the twin bed across from him, one skinny arm draped over the side, chest rising and falling in the peaceful rhythm only children could manage. Malik pulled on his jeans in the dark. They were the same jeans from yesterday and the day before that, the ones without holes in the knees. He had 2 pairs like that, and he rotated them carefully, making them last. His work shirt hung on the back of the door, blue polyester with quick-stop gas embroidered in red thread over the pocket. The fabric was stiff from too many washings, the collar frayed at the edges. The apartment was quiet except for the drip of the kitchen faucet. Malik had tried to fix it twice, but the washer kept wearing out. He couldn't afford to call a plumber, and the landlord, Mr. Chen, had stopped returning his calls 3 weeks ago. The eviction notice was still taped to the refrigerator, its bold red letters visible even in the dim light from the street. Final warning, 15 days. 15 days had become 12, then 9. Now it was down to 6. Malik started the coffee maker, a garage sale find from 2 years back that sputtered and hissed but still worked. While it brewed, he opened the refrigerator and took inventory. Half a carton of eggs, a nearly empty jug of milk, bread, peanut butter, apples that were starting to soften. He'd get paid Friday from the gas station, and if he picked up an extra shift at the weekend loading dock, maybe he could stretch it far enough to cover groceries and still have something left for the rent. Maybe. The coffee finished with a final wheeze. Malik poured it into a chipped mug and stood at the narrow window above the sink, looking out at the street below. The neighborhood was still dark, still quiet. Across the way, the old Patterson building stood empty, its windows boarded up, graffiti crawling across the brick like ivy. 2 blocks down, barely visible in the shadows, was the house, Mr. Hargrove's house. Malik checked his watch, 5:15. He had 45 minutes before his shift started, enough time to make breakfast and walk it over. He'd been doing it for 6 months now, every single morning, rain or shine. The ritual had become as automatic as breathing. He cracked 4 eggs into the skillet, 2 for Mr. Hargrove, 2 for Jalen's lunch later. The oatmeal went into a small Tupperware container, still warm. He sliced an apple, arranged it carefully. There was a day-old pastry from the bakery next to the gas station, slightly crushed but still good. The owner, Miss Rosa, always saved the leftovers for him, never saying why, but always sliding them across the counter with a knowing smile. Malik packed everything into a small wicker basket he'd found at Goodwill. It had cost $3, and Jalen had asked why we were buying a basket when we needed new shoes. Malik hadn't had a good answer then. He still didn't. The walk to Mr. Hargrove's took 8 minutes if he moved quickly. Malik locked the apartment door, the deadbolt stuck, required jiggling, and headed down the stairs. Mrs. Chen was already up, sweeping her front stoop. She glanced at the basket, shook her head, muttered something in Cantonese that Malik didn't understand but could guess the meaning of. Why bother with that old man? Malik had heard it before, from Mrs. Chen, from DeAndre, from half the neighborhood. They all knew the stories about Cornelius Hargrove, the recluse who'd once been somebody important, somebody rich, before he'd lost it all and locked himself away. The rumors varied depending on who was telling them. Some said he'd been a corporate mogul. Others claimed he'd worked for the government. A few whispered about offshore accounts and hidden wealth, millions stashed away while he lived like a hermit. Malik didn't care about any of it. The house loomed ahead, a 2-story structure with peeling paint and overgrown hedges. The windows were dark. They were always dark. Malik walked up the cracked pathway, careful to avoid the broken step, and knocked on the heavy oak door. 3 knocks, firm but polite. He waited. The silence stretched. A car passed on the main road a block away. A bird called from somewhere in the tangle of bushes. Malik knocked again. "Mr. Hargrove, it's Malik. Brought you breakfast, sir." Nothing. This happened sometimes, more often than not, actually. Some mornings the old man answered. Most mornings he didn't. Malik had learned not to take it personally, learned to leave the basket on the step and trust that it would be empty when he came back the next day. He set the basket down carefully, making sure it was balanced. "I'll be back tomorrow," Malik said, to the closed door. "You take care now." He turned to leave, and that's when he saw it. The curtain in the upstairs window, just a flicker of movement. Someone was watching. Mr. Hargrove was up there, awake, aware, just not answering. Malik raised his hand in a small wave. The curtain fell back into place.
6 months of this, 6 months of knocking and waiting and leaving food for a man who barely acknowledged his existence. Jalen had asked him once why he kept doing it, and Malik had said something about kindness, about doing what's right even when it's hard. But standing there in the pre-dawn cold, looking up at that dark window, Malik wondered if his son was starting to doubt him. He wondered if he was starting to doubt himself. But tomorrow, he'd come back. He always did. What would it take for the door to finally open?
6 months earlier, the neighborhood had looked different through Malik's eyes. He'd been carrying Jalen's backpack and a bag of groceries, cutting through the alley behind Morrison Street to avoid the main road where Mr. Jennings' construction crew had torn up the sidewalk. The shortcut took him past the old Hargrove house, and that's when he'd seen him. An old man, thin as a rail, struggling with a garbage bag on his front porch. The bag had split open, trash spilling across the steps, coffee grounds, empty cans, crumpled newspapers. The man bent to gather it, his movements slow and pained, one hand pressed against his lower back. He looked about 70, maybe older, his skin weathered dark by years of sun, his hair a shock of white against his scalp. Malik had stopped walking. The man hadn't noticed him. He was muttering to himself, trying to scoop the garbage back into the torn bag with shaking hands. A can rolled down the steps and into the dead grass. "Need some help, sir?" The old man's head snapped up. His eyes were sharp, suspicious, the kind of eyes that had seen too much and trusted too little. "I don't need anything from you," he'd said, his voice rough as gravel. "Move along." Malik had set down his groceries anyway, walked up the path, and started gathering the scattered trash. The old man had stood there frozen, watching him with an expression caught between anger and confusion. "What are you doing?" "Helping," Malik had said simply. "I didn't ask for help." "I know." They'd worked in silence after that, Malik collecting the garbage while the old man watched. When everything was back in the bag, double-bagged now with one Malik had pulled from his groceries, the man had crossed his arms. "You want something." "No, sir." "Everyone wants something." Malik had looked at him then, really looked at him, saw the suspicion carved into every line of his face, the loneliness hiding behind the anger. Saw himself in 20 years if he kept pushing people away, kept carrying everything alone. "I'm Malik. I live 2 blocks over. This is my son Jalen." The boy had waved shyly from behind Malik's leg. The old man hadn't answered, hadn't given his name, just stared at them like they were a puzzle he couldn't solve. "We'll be seeing you around," Malik had said, gathering his groceries. "Don't bother," the old man had replied, already turning back toward his door. But the next morning, Malik had shown up anyway. He'd knocked on the door at 6 a.m., a container of scrambled eggs and toast in his hands. No answer. He'd left it on the step, called out a greeting to the silence, and walked away. The next day, the container had been washed and left on the porch railing, empty. So Malik had come back, and kept coming back. By the end of the first week, the old man had cracked the door open 3 inches, peering out through the gap with those sharp, suspicious eyes. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded. "Seemed like you could use a friend," Malik had said simply. "I don't need friends. I don't need anything from anyone." "Okay." The door slammed shut, but the food kept disappearing. By the second week, the old man had started leaving notes. They were terse, written in shaky handwriting on scraps of paper. "Too much salt. Oatmeal was cold. Don't need your pity." Malik had smiled at each one, adjusted his cooking, and kept showing up. By the third week, the door had opened wider. The old man had stood there in a faded robe, arms crossed, defiance radiating from every inch of his small frame. "What's your angle? You after money? Think I'm rich?" "No, sir. I think you're hungry." "You think you're funny?" "Not particularly." The old man had studied him for a long moment, searching for the lie, the trick, the hidden agenda. Malik had stood there patient, the basket of food growing heavy in his hands. Finally, the old man had huffed, reached out, and taken the basket. "Name's Cornelius, Cornelius Hargrove, but you can call me Mr. Hargrove. I don't do first names with strangers." "Yes, sir, Mr. Hargrove." "And don't think this means we're friends." "Wouldn't dream of it, sir." But something had shifted that day. The door had stayed open a few seconds longer. Mr. Hargrove had almost smiled, almost, before catching himself and retreating back into the shadows of his house. Jalen had tugged on Malik's sleeve as they walked home. "Dad, why is he so mean?" "He's not mean, son. He's scared." "Scared of what?" Malik looked back at the house, at the dark windows and the overgrown yard, and wondered what kind of life left a man so isolated, so defended against simple kindness. "Scared to get hurt again," he'd said quietly. By the fourth week, Mr. Hargrove had started talking, just a sentence or two at first, comments about the weather, complaints about the noise from the construction down the street, then longer conversations, stories that seemed too wild to be true. "Used to run a company, 47 employees, made more money in a month than most people see in a lifetime." Jalen's eyes had gone wide. What happened? Mr. Hargrove's face had darkened. "Trusted the wrong people, made the wrong choices, lost it all." "I'm sorry," Malik had said. "Don't be. It's ancient history." But the way his hands had trembled when he'd said it told Malik it was anything but ancient. Now, 6 months in, Malik knew the rhythm of Mr. Hargrove's moods, knew which days the old man would answer the door and which days he'd hide, knew when to push for conversation and when to leave the food and go, knew that beneath the gruff exterior was a man who'd been abandoned by everyone who once mattered. Malik wasn't going to be another person who walked away. Even if the neighborhood thought he was crazy, even if Jalen sometimes looked at him with confusion, even if his own bank account was screaming for him to stop spending money on someone else's meals. Some things mattered more than money. The basket was empty this morning, sitting clean on the porch railing. Malik picked it up, felt the weight of its absence, and smiled. Tomorrow, he'd be back. But would tomorrow bring the moment everything changed? The car died on a Tuesday. Malik had been pulling into the quick-stop parking lot for his evening shift when the engine coughed, sputtered, and went silent. The dashboard lights flickered once, then died. He'd coasted into a parking space on momentum alone, turned the key 3 times, and got nothing but a clicking sound that made his stomach drop. "Come on," he'd whispered, pumping the gas pedal. "Come on, come on, come on." Click, click, click. Dead. His manager, Terrence, had stuck his head out the door. "You coming in, or you planning to sit out here all night?" Malik had climbed out, popped the hood, and stared at the engine like it might explain itself. Oil everywhere. Something burned, a smell like fried metal and hopelessness. "I'll be right there," he'd called back. That night, after his shift, he'd walked the 4 miles home in the rain. Now, 3 days later, the car sat in the quick-stop lot with a note on the windshield from Terrence. "Get this junker moved by Monday or I'm calling a tow." The repair estimate from Garcia's auto shop was tucked in Malik's pocket, folded and refolded so many times the creases were starting to tear. $847. Malik had $63 in his checking account. He sat at the kitchen table, calculator in front of him, bills spread out like evidence at a crime scene. Rent, $950, due in 6 days. Electricity, $127, overdue by 2 weeks. Water, $43. Jalen's school fees, $35. Groceries, whatever was left, which was nothing. The numbers didn't add up. They never did. His paycheck from Quick-Stop would be $412 after taxes. The weekend loading dock shift might bring in another $180 if he could get there without a car, if he could convince his cousin Marcus to give him rides. That was $592 total, still $358 short on rent alone, and that wasn't counting food or utilities or the fact that Jalen needed new shoes because his toes were pressed against the front of his current pair. Malik pressed his palms against his eyes until he saw stars. "We could ask Grandma," Jalen said from the doorway. Malik looked up. The boy was standing there in his 2 small pajamas, the ones with the basketball print that had faded to almost nothing. His expression was careful, hopeful, like he was trying to solve a problem too big for a 10-year-old to carry. "Grandma's got her own bills, son. But she always says—" "I know what she says, and I appreciate it, but we're going to figure this out ourselves." Jalen bit his lip. "Is it because of Mr. Hargrove?" The question landed like a punch. "What do you mean?" "The food we bring him, the eggs and stuff. Mrs. Chen says you're wasting money on someone who doesn't even appreciate it. She says Mr. Hargrove's probably got money hidden away and he's just pretending to be poor." Malik set down his pen. "Come here." Jalen crossed the kitchen and climbed onto the chair across from him. His legs dangled above the floor. "What Mrs. Chen says doesn't matter," Malik said carefully. "What matters is doing what's right. You understand?" "But we don't have enough money for rent." "I know. And your car's broken." "I know that too. So why are we still—" Jalen stopped, swallowed hard. "Why are we still bringing him food?" Malik reached across the table and took his son's hand. The boy's fingers were small, fragile, and Malik felt the weight of every choice he'd made pressing down on him. Kindness doesn't stop when it gets hard. If we only do the right thing when it's easy, then it doesn't mean anything. You follow me? Jalen nodded slowly, but his eyes were wet. Dad, what if we get kicked out? We won't. But what if? We won't, Malik repeated, more firmly this time. I'm going to figure something out. I always do. But sitting there in the dim kitchen light, looking at the bills and the broken calculator and his son's worried face, Malik wasn't sure he believed himself anymore. The neighborhood had been whispering for weeks now. He'd heard it in the grocery store checkout line, at the gas station, in the way people looked at him when he walked down the street with Mr. Hargrove's breakfast basket. The whispers followed him like shadows. Why is he wasting his time? That old man's got money guaranteed. Malik's probably trying to get into the will. He's a fool, throwing away food when his own kid needs shoes. DeAndre had said it to his face 2 days ago. They'd been standing outside the corner store and DeAndre had lit a cigarette, blown smoke toward the sky and shook his head. Man, what are you doing? What do you mean? You know what I mean. The old dude, the breakfast routine. Everyone's talking. Let them talk. Malik, real talk. You can't afford this. Your car's dead, your rent's light, and you're out here playing Good Samaritan for some cranky old man who probably doesn't even remember your name half the time. Malik had adjusted the grip on the basket. He remembers. Even if he does, so what? What's he doing for you? It's not about what he does for me. DeAndre had laughed, sharp and humorless. You're something else, man. You really are. Now, sitting at the kitchen table with his son watching him with those big, worried eyes, Malik wondered if DeAndre was right, wondered if he was sacrificing too much for something that didn't make logical sense, wondered if his pride was going to cost them the roof over their heads. But then he thought about Mr. Hargrove's face the last time the door had opened wide, thought about the way the old man had almost smiled when Jalen had told him about getting an A on his math test, thought about the loneliness that leaked out of that house like water through cracked walls. Some people just needed to be reminded that someone cared, even if it cost everything. Malik stood up, gathered the bills into a pile, and tucked them into the drawer where Jalen wouldn't see them anymore. Get ready for bed. School tomorrow. Are we still taking breakfast to Mr. Hargrove in the morning? Malik looked at his son, at the question in his eyes, and made a choice. Yes, son, we are. Okay. Jalen slid off the chair, hesitated at the doorway. Dad? Yeah? I think you're doing the right thing, even if it's hard. The words hit Malik square in the chest, and he had to swallow past the thickness in his throat. Thanks, buddy. That means a lot. After Jalen went to bed, Malik sat in the dark kitchen and did the math one more time. It still didn't work, still came up short, still left them in a hole so deep he couldn't see the edges. But tomorrow morning he'd wake up at 4:30 a.m., make breakfast, and walk it 2 blocks to a man who'd once told him, I don't need anything from anyone. Because maybe Mr. Hargrove didn't need it, but Malik did. How much would it cost before he had nothing left to give? Mr. Hargrove was waiting on the porch. Malik saw him from half a block away, a small figure hunched in a folding chair, wrapped in a thick blanket despite the morning warmth. The sight stopped Malik mid-step. In 6 months, the old man had never been outside when he arrived, never waited, never anticipated. Something had changed. Malik picked up his pace, the basket swinging at his side. As he got closer, he could see Mr. Hargrove's face more clearly. The man looked older today somehow, the lines around his eyes deeper, his shoulders more curved. But his expression was different too, softer, almost expectant. Morning, Mr. Hargrove, Malik called as he approached. You're late. The words were sharp, but there was no bite behind them. Usually here by 6:15. Had to walk. Car's still broken. You walked 4 miles. Just 2 blocks from my apartment to here. Mr. Hargrove's eyes narrowed. Thought you said your car was broken. It is. It's sitting in the quick-stop lot across town. Been walking to work and back. The old man was quiet for a moment, studying him. You're an idiot. Malik smiled. Yes, sir, probably. Walking 8 miles a day because you won't fix your car. Can't fix it, not enough money. And yet you're still here, feeding an old man who's mean to you. You're not that mean. Mr. Hargrove snorted. Come inside. I want to show you something. Malik blinked. In 6 months, he'd never been invited past the threshold. The door had opened, sure, but always just wide enough for Mr. Hargrove to take the basket and retreat, never wide enough for company. You sure?
Do I look like I'm joking? Get in here before I change my mind. Malik followed him through the heavy oak door into a house that smelled like old books and lemon polish. The interior was nothing like he'd expected. Clean, organized, filled with dark wood furniture that looked expensive even under layers of dust.
Photographs lined the walls, black and white images of people in suits, board meetings, handshakes with men Malik half recognized from old news clips. "Sit," Mr. Hargrove ordered, gesturing toward a leather couch. Malik sat, the basket still in his hands. Mr. Hargrove lowered himself into a matching chair across from him, wincing as his joints protested. "You ever wonder why I let you keep coming back?" the old man asked. "Honestly? Every day. You want to know the truth? If you want to tell me." Mr. Hargrove leaned back, his eyes distant. "I was the CEO of Hargrove Technologies, ran it for 32 years, built it from nothing into a company worth $300 million. Malik's breath caught. The number was incomprehensible, too large to attach to the frail man sitting across from him. "We developed communication systems, satellite technology, government contracts. We were pioneers. I had 400 employees at the peak. I was on magazine covers, got invited to White House dinners, had politicians and billionaires on speed dial." "What happened?" The old man's face darkened. "My business partner, guy named Richard Stokes, we'd built the company together, 50-50 split. I trusted him like a brother. Hell, I trusted him more than my actual brother." He paused, fingers tightening on the armrests. "Stokes embezzled $60 million over 3 years. By the time I found out, he'd already moved it offshore, bought himself immunity with the right lawyers and the right connections. I tried to fight it, spent every dollar I had on legal fees. Lost everything. The company went bankrupt, employees lost their pensions, shareholders lost their investments. And Stokes?" Mr. Hargrove's laugh was bitter. "He's living in the Cayman Islands right now, probably sipping cocktails on a beach I helped pay for." Malik didn't know what to say. The weight of the story pressed down on him, heavy with betrayal and loss. "After that, everyone disappeared," Mr. Hargrove said quietly. "Friends stopped calling, family stopped visiting. People I'd known for decades crossed the street to avoid me. I was a failure, a cautionary tale. Nobody wants to associate with that." "That's not true." "It is true. You don't know how it works at that level. Success has a million fathers. Failure is an orphan." Malik set the basket on the coffee table between them. "You're not a failure." "I lost everything." "You survived. That's not nothing." Mr. Hargrove looked at him then, really looked at him, and something in his expression cracked. "You remind me of someone. My son. He would have been about your age now if he'd lived." The words hung in the air. "What happened to him?" Malik asked softly. "Car accident, 20 years ago. He was driving home from college for Thanksgiving. Drunk driver ran a red light." Mr. Hargrove's voice had gone hollow. "After that, my wife couldn't look at me anymore. Said I'd worked too much, been gone too much, missed too much of his life. She blamed me. Maybe she was right. We divorced 2 years later, haven't spoken to her since." The silence that followed was thick, weighted with grief that had never fully healed. "I locked myself away after that," Mr. Hargrove said quietly. "Figured if I didn't let anyone in, they couldn't hurt me, couldn't leave me, couldn't take anything else from me." He looked at Malik. "And then you showed up, this stranger with a basket of eggs, refusing to go away. I'm stubborn like that. You're an idiot like that. That too." Mr. Hargrove smiled, actually smiled, the first real one Malik had ever seen from him. "You know what the craziest part is? I've got contacts, people who owe me favors from the old days. I could make one phone call and get you a job that pays triple what you're making now, could get your car fixed with a single check." Malik's heart skipped. "Why haven't you?" "Because I wanted to see how long you'd keep coming. Wanted to know if your kindness had a price tag, if there was a breaking point where you'd stop showing up." He leaned forward. "And you keep surprising me. Your car dies, you walk. Your bills pile up, you still bring breakfast. Your neighbors mock you, you don't flinch. Why?" "Because you needed someone to care." "I don't need anything." "Yes, sir, you do. Everyone does." The old man's eyes glistened. He blinked rapidly, cleared his throat. "My birthday is next week. I'll be 73. Haven't celebrated it in 20 years. But I was thinking maybe." He paused, vulnerable in a way that made Malik's chest ache. "Maybe you and your boy could come over. I could make dinner, or try to. Haven't cooked in a while." "We'd be honored, Mr. Hargrove." "Cornelius. You can call me Cornelius." "Yes, sir, Cornelius." They sat in comfortable silence after that, the morning light filtering through the dusty windows. Malik thought about the path that had led him here, the 6 months of small gestures that had somehow unlocked this moment. Thought about how close he'd come to giving up a dozen times, and how glad he was that he hadn't. "There's something else," Cornelius said, his voice dropping. "Something I need to tell you, about why I really let you in." Malik waited. "I'm sick. Doctors say I've got maybe 6 months. Heart condition. Too old for surgery, too stubborn for a transplant list." He held up a hand before Malik could speak. "Don't. I've made my peace with it. But I didn't want to die alone. Didn't want my last months to be nothing but silence and regret." "Cornelius." "You saved me, Malik. Not from dying empty. You gave me something to wake up for again. Someone who gave a damn whether I ate breakfast. That's worth more than all the money I ever made." Malik's throat was too tight to speak. He reached across the space between them and took the old man's weathered hand. They sat like that, 2 men from different worlds, connected by something as simple and profound as scrambled eggs and persistence. Outside, a car backfired. The sound echoed through the neighborhood like a gunshot, and both men jumped. "Should probably let you get to work," Cornelius said, pulling his hand back. "Yeah, shift starts in 20 minutes. You walking?" "Yes, sir." Cornelius stood slowly, disappeared into another room, and returned with a set of keys. "Take my car. It's in the garage. 2015 Honda. Hasn't been driven in 2 years, but it should start." "I can't." "You can and you will. I'm not using it. Might as well be useful to someone." Malik stared at the keys, his vision blurring. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. You're going to be driving me to my doctor's appointments from now on. Consider it payment." They both smiled, the moment breaking into something lighter. Malik left through the front door, keys in hand, basket empty. The car was exactly where Cornelius said it would be, covered with dust but intact. It started on the second try, engine purring smoothly. As he backed out of the garage, Malik saw Cornelius watching from the window, one hand raised for farewell. The old man who'd once told him, "I don't need anything from anyone," had just handed him more than keys. He'd handed him trust. But as Malik drove toward Quickstop, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting, something larger than birthday dinners and borrowed cars, something he couldn't quite name yet, that made his skin prickle with anticipation. What secrets was Cornelius still hiding behind those sharp, tired eyes? The bulldozer's engine roared 3 houses down from Cornelius's place. Malik heard it before he saw it, a deep mechanical growl that shook the morning air and sent vibrations through the sidewalk. He was halfway to Cornelius's door, breakfast basket in hand, when the yellow machine rolled into view, its massive blades scraping against asphalt, leaving black marks in its wake. Behind it, a convoy of white trucks pulled up, each one emblazoned with gold lettering, Jennings Development Corporation. Malik's stomach tightened. Workers in hard hats spilled out of the trucks, carrying clipboards and surveying equipment. They moved with the efficiency of people who'd done this before, marking properties, taking measurements, planting orange flags in yards like they were claiming territory. "Hey!" Mrs. Chen rushed out of her house, still in her bathrobe. "What are you doing? This is private property." A man in a charcoal suit emerged from a black Mercedes. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with silver hair slicked back and a smile that never reached his eyes. Malik recognized him immediately. Xavier Jennings, the developer who'd been circling the neighborhood like a shark for 6 months. "Mrs. Chen, good morning." Jennings's voice was smooth, practiced. "I'm here on official business. Your block has been rezoned for commercial development. We'll be making offers on all properties by end of week." "Rezoned? Nobody told us about any rezoning." "The notices were mailed last month. City Council approved it 3 weeks ago." He pulled out a document, waved it casually. "All legal and above board." Mrs. Chen snatched the paper, her hands shaking. "This is ridiculous. We're not selling. None of us are selling." Jennings's smile widened. "That's your choice, of course, but I should warn you, Once we start construction on the surrounding lots, property values here will drop significantly. Noise, dust, disruption. Most people find it easier to take the offer and relocate somewhere quieter. This is our home. And I'm offering you fair market value plus 20%. That's more than generous. Malik felt his jaw clench. He'd heard about Jennings' tactics. The way he'd cleared out 3 blocks on the east side last year, pushing out families who'd lived there for generations. The man didn't develop neighborhoods, he erased them. DeAndre appeared from down the street, anger radiating from every step. Man, you can't just roll up here with your machines and start tearing things down. I'm not tearing anything down yet, Jennings said smoothly. Just surveying, getting the lay of the land. But I do have purchase agreements ready for anyone interested in making a smart financial decision. We're not interested. Jennings turned, his eyes landing on Malik for the first time. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe. Or calculation. Malik Rivers, he said, like they were old friends. The neighborhood hero. I've heard about you. Malik said nothing. You're the one who's been playing nursemaid to old man Hargrove, aren't you? Bringing him meals, keeping him company. Jennings took a step closer. That's admirable, really. But you should know, this block is changing, with or without Hargrove's cooperation. He's not selling. Has he told you that, or are you just assuming? Jennings pulled out another document, this one thicker. I've made Mr. Hargrove 3 separate offers, each one more generous than the last. He hasn't responded to any of them. Maybe that's your answer. Or maybe he needs someone to explain the reality of the situation. See, this neighborhood is dying. Look around. Boarded up buildings, broken sidewalks, crime rates climbing. People like you in Hargrove, you're holding on to something that's already gone. People live here. Families, kids. This isn't just real estate. Jennings laughed, sharp and cold. Of course it's real estate. That's all it's ever been. And right now, it's undervalued real estate in a prime location. I'm offering people a chance to cash out before it's worth nothing. By forcing them out. By giving them options. Jennings' expression hardened. Look, I get it. You're the good guy. You help old men and teach your kid about kindness. That's touching. But this is business, and in business, sentiment doesn't pay the bills. He gestured toward the workers, who were now marking Cornelius's property with orange spray paint. That's his house, Malik said, his voice rising. You can't. I can do whatever the zoning permits, and it permits quite a lot. Jennings stepped closer, lowering his voice. Here's some free advice, Rivers. Stop wasting your time on Hargrove. The man's old, sick, and sitting on property worth $500,000. You think he cares about this neighborhood? He's been hiding in that house for 20 years while the rest of you struggled. You don't know anything about him. I know he's a washed-up has-been who lost his fortune and his family. I know he's alone because everyone who mattered walked away. And I know that no amount of scrambled eggs is going to change that. The words hit like fists. Malik felt heat rising in his chest, anger mixing with something darker. Doubt, maybe, or fear that Jennings might be right. Stay away from his house, Malik said. Or what? Jennings smiled. You'll stop me? You can barely afford rent, Rivers. Your car's broken down, your kid needs shoes, and you're out here defending an old man who probably doesn't even remember your name half the time. He remembers. Does he? Or are you just telling yourself that to feel important? Jennings pulled out a business card, held it out. When reality hits, give me a call. I can find work for someone with your determination. Better pay than whatever you're making at that gas station. Malik didn't take the card. Jennings shrugged, tucked it back into his pocket. Suit yourself, but this block is mine in 6 months. You can either profit from that or get crushed by it. Your choice. He turned and walked back to his Mercedes, calling out instructions to his workers. The bulldozer started moving again, positioning itself at the corner lot. Malik stood frozen, the breakfast basket heavy in his hands. Around him, neighbors were gathering. Mrs. Chen clutching the zoning notice, DeAndre on his phone trying to reach someone at City Hall, others emerging from their homes with confusion and fear written across their faces. Jalen appeared at Malik's side, his backpack slung over one shoulder. Dad, what's happening? Trouble, son. Are they going to take Mr. Hargrove's house? Not if I can help it. But even as he said it, Malik felt the weight of impossibility pressing down. What could he do against a developer with lawyers and permits and money? What power did kindness have against bulldozers and contracts? Jalen grabbed his hand. "Mr. Hargrove needs us." "I know. So we're going to help him, right?" Malik looked down at his son, at the faith shining in his eyes, and felt something shift inside him. Jennings was wrong. Kindness wasn't weakness, caring wasn't foolish, and if fighting for what mattered meant standing in front of a bulldozer, then that's what he'd do. "Yeah, son, we're going to help him." They walked the rest of the way to Cornelius's house together, past the workers and the orange flags and the machines that promised to erase everything familiar. Malik knocked on the heavy oak door, 3 firm knocks, and waited. The door opened. Cornelius stood there, thinner than last week, his face gray with exhaustion. "They're here," the old man said quietly. "Finally came for me. We're not going to let them take your house." Cornelius smiled, sad and knowing. "Malik, you can't fight this. Jennings has already won." "Not yet he hasn't. You don't understand. There are things I haven't told you, things about why I'm really here, why I've been hiding." His hands trembled on the doorframe, "things that might change how you see me." Malik felt cold spread through his chest. What kind of things? But before Cornelius could answer, a car pulled up, sleek, black, official-looking. 2 men in suits stepped out, badges glinting at their belts. Federal agents. They walked straight toward Cornelius's door, their expressions unreadable. "Cornelius Hargrove?" The old man's face went white. "Yes. We need to speak with you. It's urgent." Cornelius looked at Malik, and in his eyes was something that looked like apology, like regret, like goodbye. What had Cornelius been hiding that brought federal agents to his door? The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Malik sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair beside Cornelius's bed, watching the old man's chest rise and fall in shallow, labored breaths. The heart monitor beeped steadily, a rhythm that felt fragile, like it could break at any moment. 3 days. Cornelius had been here for 3 days. It had happened so fast. The federal agents had been asking questions, routine questions, they'd said, when Cornelius had clutched his chest and collapsed on his front porch. Malik had called 911, ridden in the ambulance, held the old man's hand while doctors shouted medical terms he didn't understand. Heart attack, moderate damage, stable but critical. Now Cornelius lay in the hospital bed, tubes running from his arms, oxygen mask covering his face. He looked smaller somehow, more fragile, like the machinery was the only thing keeping him tethered to life. Jalen sat on the window ledge, legs pulled up to his chest. He hadn't said much since they'd arrived, just watched Cornelius with wide, worried eyes. "You should go home," Cornelius whispered, his voice muffled by the mask. "Get some rest." "We're staying," Malik said. "I'm not going anywhere. Doctor said I'm stable." "We're still staying." Cornelius closed his eyes. Stubborn. Learned from the best. A knock on the door interrupted them. A woman entered, mid-50s, sharp business suit, carrying a briefcase. She had the look of someone who'd spent her life in boardrooms and courtrooms, someone who measured words carefully. "Mr. Hargrove, I'm Diana Okonkwo. Your attorney sent me." She glanced at Malik. "Could we have a moment alone?" "Anything you need to say, you can say in front of Malik," Cornelius said. Diana hesitated, then nodded. She pulled out a chair, sat down, and opened her briefcase. "The federal agents who came to your house, they weren't there about you. They were there about Richard Stokes." Cornelius's eyes snapped open. "What about him?" "He's been arrested. Securities fraud, money laundering, tax evasion. The investigation's been ongoing for 2 years. They finally have enough evidence to prosecute." The room went silent except for the beeping monitor. "They want you to testify," Diana continued. "You're the key witness. You can corroborate the financial records, explain how he structured the embezzlement. With your testimony, they can put him away for 20 years. Cornelius was shaking. "I can't." "Mr. Hargrove." "I said I can't." His voice cracked, and the monitor started beeping faster. "Do you know what he'll do? What kind of connections he has? He'll destroy me. He'll destroy everyone around me." "He's already destroyed," Diana said quietly. The assets are frozen, his lawyers are scrambling. This is your chance to get justice." "Justice," Cornelius laughed bitterly. 20 years too late. "It's not too late. The victims from your company, the employees who lost their pensions, they deserve this." Malik watched Cornelius's face crumble, watched decades of anger and grief surface in the tears that slipped down his weathered cheeks. "I'm dying. Heart's giving out. Doctors say I've got weeks, maybe a month. What does justice matter now?" Diana leaned forward. "It matters because you're not dead yet. It matters because those 400 people who lost everything are still alive, still struggling. It matters because Richard Stokes is still out there, living off their money. He'll come after me, after anyone I care about." His eyes shifted to Malik, then to Jalen, and the implication hung heavy in the air. "We can protect you, federal protection if necessary. You can't protect everyone." Malik spoke for the first time. What happened to the man who built a company from nothing, the man who fought for 30 years? Cornelius looked at him, eyes hollow. "That man died when his son did, when his wife left, when everyone he trusted turned their backs. I didn't turn my back. You don't understand what you're asking. Then explain it to me." Cornelius pulled off the oxygen mask, his breathing ragged. "Stokes has people. Dangerous people. When I first tried to go after him legally, my house was broken into, my car was vandalized, I got threatening calls in the middle of the night. He made it clear if I kept pushing, people I loved would get hurt." "That was 20 years ago," Diana interjected. "He doesn't have that kind of power anymore." "You don't know that." "I do know that he's in custody, his assets are frozen, and his network is falling apart. This is your window, Mr. Hargrove. It won't come again." Cornelius put the mask back on, closed his eyes. "I need time."
"We don't have much time. The preliminary hearing is in 2 weeks. Then you'll have my answer in 2 weeks. Diana looked like she wanted to argue, but she packed up her briefcase instead. "I'll be in touch." After she left, silence settled over the room. Jalen climbed down from the window ledge and approached the bed. "Mr. Hargrove?" The boy's voice was small. "Are you scared?" Cornelius opened his eyes, looked at Jalen, and something in his expression softened. "Terrified, son. My dad says being scared doesn't mean you can't be brave. Your dad's a smart man. He also says doing the right thing is hard, but that's what makes it matter." Cornelius reached out with a trembling hand and touched Jalen's cheek. "How'd you get so wise at 10 years old?" "I watched my dad." Malik felt his throat tighten. He stood up, put his hand on Jalen's shoulder. "We should let Mr. Hargrove rest." "Wait!" Cornelius grabbed Malik's wrist, his grip weak but urgent. "There's something in my house. In the study, behind the bookshelf on the left wall. There's a safe. Combination is 071589. My son's birthday. Why are you telling me this?" "Because if something happens to me, I need you to have it. Papers, documents, evidence, everything I kept from the trial, everything that proves what Stokes did. Nothing is going to happen to you. Malik, please, just promise me." "I promise." Cornelius released his wrist, sank back into the pillows. "You're a good man. Better than I deserve." "That's not true." "It is. I've spent 20 years pushing people away, convinced I was protecting them. All I did was protect my own fear." He looked at Jalen, then back at Malik. "Don't make my mistakes. Don't let fear turn you into a ghost." They left the hospital as the sun was setting, the sky streaked with orange and purple. Jalen held Malik's hand as they walked to the borrowed Honda. "Is Mr. Hargrove going to die?" Jalen asked. "I don't know, son. I don't want him to." "Me neither." They drove home in silence, past the construction site where Jennings's workers had left their equipment for the night. The orange flags were still planted in yards, claiming territory, promising change. Malik's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Last chance. Sell now or watch everything crumble. XJ." He deleted it without responding. That night, after Jalen was asleep, Malik drove back to Cornelius's house. He used the key the old man had given him weeks ago, let himself in, and found the study. The bookshelf was exactly where Cornelius said it would be, and behind it, set into the wall, was a small safe. 071589. The safe clicked open. Inside were files, photographs, financial records. Malik pulled them out carefully, spread them across the desk. Years of evidence, meticulously organized, documenting every fraudulent transaction, every forged signature, every lie that built Richard Stokes' empire. And at the bottom of the safe, a letter addressed to Malik. He opened it with shaking hands. "Malik, if you're reading this, I'm either dead or close to it. I'm sorry for dragging you into this mess.
You deserve better, but I need you to know the truth. The federal agents aren't just here about Stokes. They're here because I've been keeping evidence for 2 decades, waiting for the right moment to use it. That moment is now. But testifying will put a target on my back, on anyone associated with me. I can't ask you to take that risk, but I also can't let Stokes win. The choice is yours. If you turn over these documents, justice happens. If you destroy them, you and Jalen stay safe. I won't blame you either way. You've already given me more than I had any right to expect. Cornelius. Malik read the letter 3 times, each word sinking deeper. He looked at the files, at the evidence that could bring down a criminal and restore justice to 400 people. Then he thought about Jalen, asleep in their apartment, trusting his father to keep him safe. He thought about the bulldozers and the orange flags, and Xavier Jennings' threat. He thought about Cornelius, alone in a hospital room, waiting to see if kindness had limits. The choice felt impossible. What would it cost to do the right thing this time? Cornelius disappeared on a Thursday. Malik arrived at the hospital at 7 a.m., the same time he'd come every morning for a week, carrying coffee and a breakfast sandwich Cornelius would barely touch. But when he pushed open the door to room 304, the bed was empty. Sheets stripped, machines silent. His heart stopped. "Excuse me," he grabbed a passing nurse. "Where's the patient who was in this room, Cornelius Hargrove?" The nurse checked her tablet, frowned. He checked himself out, about 2 hours ago. He what? Signed the release forms against medical advice, left with a private transport service. Malik's mind raced. Cornelius could barely walk, could barely breathe without assistance, and he'd just checked himself out? Did he say where he was going? No, sir, just that he had urgent business to attend to. Malik was already running. He called Cornelius's phone 5 times on the drive to the house. Each call went straight to voicemail. The neighborhood was quiet when he pulled up. Too quiet. Jennings' construction equipment sat idle at the corner, but there were no workers, no noise, just an eerie stillness that made Malik's skin crawl. The front door was unlocked. "Cornelius?" Malik pushed it open, stepped inside. "You here?" Silence. He moved through the house quickly, checking rooms. The living room was untouched, the kitchen was clean, but when he reached the study, he froze. The bookshelf had been pulled away from the wall. The safe was open, empty. Everything was gone. The files, the photographs, the evidence, all of it. On the desk sat a single envelope with Malik's name written in Cornelius's shaky handwriting. Malik tore it open. "I'm sorry, I couldn't put you and Jalen at risk. I've taken the evidence to the federal prosecutor myself. By the time you read this, I'll be in protective custody, preparing to testify. Diana was right. This is my last chance to make things right. I know I'm dying, but I'd rather die fighting than hide. Thank you for reminding me what courage looks like. The house is yours. Deed transfer papers are with my attorney. Do with it what you will. Tell Jalen he made an old man remember what hope feels like. And tell yourself that you changed a life. You changed mine. C." Malik read the letter twice, his hands trembling. Cornelius had done it, had actually done it. The old man who'd spent 20 years hiding, who'd been too scared to fight back, had walked out of a hospital against medical orders to face down the demons that had haunted him for decades. Because of breakfast, because of persistence, because someone had refused to let him die alone and forgotten. Malik sank into the desk chair, overwhelmed. His phone rang. Diana Okonkwo. "Mr. Rivers, I assume you've heard." "Just found out. Where is he?" "Safe house downtown, federal protection. He's giving his deposition today." Her voice carried something that might have been admiration. "She walked into my office this morning with 20 years of evidence and said, 'Let's end this.' I've never seen anything like it." "Is he okay?" "Medically, no. He should be in a hospital, but he's determined, says he's not dying until Stokes is behind bars." "Can I see him?" "Not until after the hearing, security protocols, but he asked me to tell you something." She paused. "He said to finish the breakfast deliveries, that there are other people in the neighborhood who need someone to care." Malik's vision blurred. "There's something else," Diana continued. "The house. He transferred the deed to you this morning. It's yours, free and clear. Property taxes are paid through the year. He also set up a trust for Jalen's education, full ride to any college he wants." The words didn't make sense, couldn't make sense. Why would he? "Because you're the closest thing to family he has. Because you showed up every day for 6 months asking nothing in return. Because you reminded him what it means to be human. Diana's voice softened. Mr. Rivers, most people go their whole lives without touching someone the way you touched Cornelius. What you did, it's extraordinary. I just brought breakfast. No, you brought hope, and now he's using that hope to fight back. After she hung up, Malik sat in the study for a long time, surrounded by the evidence of a life reclaimed. The house felt different now, not empty, not haunted, just quiet, waiting for whatever came next. His phone buzzed. A text from Jalen's school. Jalen is in the office, please call. Malik's stomach dropped. He called immediately. Mr. Rivers, this is Principal Matthews. Jalen's fine, but we need you to come in. There's been an incident. What kind of incident?
A man came to the school asking about Jalen, said he was a family friend. Our security protocols prevented any contact, but we need to file a report. Malik's veins filled with ice. What did this man look like? Tall, silver hair, expensive suit. He left a business card. Malik knew before she said it. Xavier Jennings. He was at the school in 6 minutes, breaking every speed limit. Jalen was sitting in the office, looking small and scared. Malik pulled him into a hug. You okay? Yeah, I didn't talk to him. The secretary wouldn't let him pass the desk. That's good. That's really good. Principal Matthews handed Malik the business card. On the back, written in neat print, Hargrove made his choice, now you make yours. Malik felt rage building, hot and sharp. Jennings had crossed a line, had gone after his son to send a message. I'm calling the police, Principal Matthews said. Do it, and I want security increased around Jalen. No one gets near him without my approval. Of course. Malik drove Jalen home, both of them silent. The boy was shaking, trying to hide it, trying to be brave. Dad, who was that man? Someone who's about to learn he made a big mistake. Back at the apartment, Malik called Diana Okonkwo. Jennings went to Jalen's school, tried to get access to him. Her response was immediate and sharp. That's witness intimidation, federal crime. Give me the details. Malik recounted everything. Diana was typing furiously on her end. We're adding Jennings to the investigation. If he's connected to Stokes's operation, this gives us grounds to bring him in for questioning. Is he connected? We're about to find out. That night, Malik couldn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table, looking at the deed to Cornelius's house, the trust documents for Jalen, the letter that had changed everything. The old man had given him more than property. He'd given him proof that kindness mattered, that showing up mattered, that refusing to give up on someone could save them. But the cost was rising. Jennings was escalating. Stokes's trial would make them targets, and Cornelius was in a safe house, dying, fighting battles that should have been fought decades ago. Malik thought about walking away, taking Jalen and disappearing, using the house sale money to start over somewhere safe. But then he thought about Cornelius's words, don't let fear turn you into a ghost. He thought about Jalen's question, are we going to help him, right? He thought about 400 people who'd lost their pensions waiting for justice, and he made his choice. The next morning, Malik walked into Diana Okonkwo's office and laid the copied evidence files on her desk. I want to testify too, he said, whatever Cornelius needs, whatever it takes to bring them both down, Stokes and Jennings. Diana looked at him for a long moment. You understand the risks. I understand that doing nothing is riskier. You're putting yourself and your son in danger. We're already in danger. At least this way, we're fighting back. She smiled then, fierce and proud. Cornelius said you were extraordinary. I'm starting to see why. But as Malik left her office, walking out into the bright Atlanta morning, he couldn't shake the feeling that the real fight was just beginning. Would courage be enough when the whole system was against them? The SUVs came at dawn, 50 of them rolling down Malik's street in perfect formation, their engines a symphony of power and purpose. Neighbors rushed to their windows, car alarms triggered, dogs barked themselves hoarse. Malik stood on his porch, Jalen beside him, watching the convoy approach. His first thought was Jennings, his second was federal agents, his third was that somehow, despite everything, he'd miscalculated and now they were coming for him. But as the first vehicle stopped in front of his house, the door opened and Diana Okonkwo stepped out, her expression unreadable. Behind her, more doors opened. Men and women in suits emerged, their faces unfamiliar but their bearing unmistakable. Lawyers, executives, people who carried authority like a second skin. Then the final vehicle's door opened and Cornelius stepped out. The old man looked terrible, thinner than ever, skin gray, moving with the careful deliberation of someone whose body was failing, but his eyes were bright, alive, burning with something Malik hadn't seen before. Victory. "What's going on?" Malik asked as Cornelius approached. "Justice," the old man said simply, "and something more." Diana stepped forward, holding a leather folder. "Mr. Rivers, 3 days ago, Cornelius Hargrove testified in federal court against Richard Stokes. Yesterday, Stokes was convicted on all charges, 40 years without possibility of parole." The words took a moment to land. 40 years? The evidence Cornelius provided was irrefutable. Financial records, witness testimony, documented fraud spanning 2 decades. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Diana's smile was sharp. Stokes's empire is gone. Assets seized, his co-conspirators are cooperating to reduce their own sentences. Malik looked at Cornelius. "You did it." "We did it," the old man corrected. "You gave me the courage to fight." "But the SUVs, who are all these people?" Cornelius gestured to the crowd gathering behind him. "Former employees of Hargrove Technologies, people who lost their pensions when the company collapsed. They've been following the trial. When they heard I'd testified, they wanted to meet the man who convinced me to come forward." A woman stepped forward, middle-aged, tears streaming down her face. "Mr. Hargrove, I'm Keisha Williams. I worked in your accounting department for 12 years. Lost everything when the company went under. My daughter couldn't finish college. My husband and I lost our house." She grabbed Cornelius's hands. "Thank you. Thank you for finally giving us justice." More people approached, each with their own story. Pensions restored through the asset seizure, restitution payments coming, justice delivered after 20 years of waiting. Cornelius accepted their gratitude with quiet dignity, but Malik could see the toll it was taking. The old man was trembling, his breathing labored. "He needs to sit down," Malik said. Diana nodded, and 2 people helped Cornelius to a chair someone had brought from inside. The crowd gave him space, still thanking him, still celebrating. Then a sleek black car pulled up, and Xavier Jennings stepped out. The celebration died. Jennings looked disheveled, his usually perfect hair mussed, his suit wrinkled. His eyes were wild, dangerous. "You think you've won?" He pointed at Cornelius. "You've destroyed everything." "Mr. Jennings," Diana said coldly, "I am under investigation for conspiracy and witness intimidation. I suggest you leave before I have you arrested." "Investigation?" Jennings laughed, the sound unhinged. "I built this neighborhood's future. I was going to create something meaningful here, and you let this washed-up old fool ruin it." "You were going to destroy homes," Malik said quietly, "to line your own pockets." "I was going to bring progress, jobs, development." Jennings' voice rose. "But no, you had to play hero, you and your breakfast baskets and your moral superiority." "It was never about being a hero." "Then what was it about? What did you possibly hope to gain?" Malik looked at Cornelius, then at Jalen, and then at the crowd of people who'd gotten their lives back. "Everything that actually matters," he said. Jennings lunged forward, but 2 federal agents materialized from the crowd, grabbing his arms. "Xavier Jennings, you're under arrest for attempted bribery of a federal witness and conspiracy to commit fraud." They read him his rights while Jennings struggled, screaming obscenities. The neighborhood watched in silence as he was loaded into a police car and driven away. When the car disappeared around the corner, Cornelius started laughing. It was a weak sound, but genuine, filled with relief and triumph. 20 years. 20 years I waited for that." Diana crouched beside his chair. "There's more. The asset recovery from Stokes's conviction includes substantial restitution. Every employee who lost their pension will receive compensation. It's not everything, but it's significant." Keisha Williams fell to her knees, sobbing. Others joined her, a wave of emotion rippling through the crowd. Malik felt Jalen's hand slip into his. "Dad, did we help do this?" "You did more than help, son. You reminded Mr. Hargrove what courage looks like." Cornelius beckoned Malik closer. His voice was barely a whisper. "The house. The trust. It's all yours. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Keep showing up. Keep bringing breakfast to people who need it. Keep teaching your son that kindness isn't weakness. His eyes glistened. Promise me that what we started doesn't end here. I promise. Good. Cornelius closed his eyes, exhausted. Then I can rest. Diana called for a medical team. They'd been standing by, anticipating this moment. They moved Cornelius carefully into a waiting ambulance, its lights silent out of respect. As the ambulance pulled away, the crowd began to disperse, but not before each person stopped to shake Malik's hand, to thank him, to acknowledge what his simple acts of kindness had made possible. Mrs. Chen approached, her eyes red. I was wrong about you, about what you were doing. It's okay. No, it's not. I judged you. We all did. But you saved this neighborhood. You saved all of us. I just brought breakfast. She smiled through her tears. You brought hope. By mid-morning, the street was quiet again. The SUVs were gone. The crowd had dispersed. But something fundamental had shifted. The orange flags were being pulled up. The construction equipment was being loaded onto trucks. The notice of rezoning had been suspended pending investigation into Jennings practices. The neighborhood was safe. Malik sat on his porch with Jalen, both of them processing everything that had happened. Is Mr. Hargrove going to be okay? Jalen asked. I don't know, son, but he fought his fight. He did what mattered. Because of us? Because of breakfast. Because of not giving up. Jalen was quiet for a moment. Dad, can we still bring breakfast to people, even now that Mr. Hargrove is gone? Malik pulled his son close. Absolutely. In fact, I was thinking we might expand. There's a lot of people in this neighborhood who could use someone to care. Like Mrs. Chen? Like Mrs. Chen. That afternoon, Malik received a call from the hospital. Cornelius had slipped into a coma. The doctors said it was peaceful, that he wasn't in pain. They said it could be hours or days, but the end was close. Malik went to see him that evening, sat beside the bed, holding the old man's hand. You did it. You got your justice. You made things right. You can rest now. Cornelius's chest rose and fell slowly, peacefully. Thank you for letting me be part of your life. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for teaching my son what real courage looks like. He stayed until visiting hours ended, then drove home through the quiet streets of a neighborhood that had been saved by scrambled eggs and stubbornness. Would Malik's promise be enough to honor everything Cornelius had fought for? 6 months later, Malik stood in front of Cornelius Hargrove's house, his house now, with a fresh coat of paint brightening the facade and new flowers blooming in the front yard. Jalen was helping him carry breakfast baskets to the car. Not one basket, 7. They'd started small, just a few neighbors. Mrs. Chen, who'd lost her husband the month before and needed company more than food, DeAndre, who was struggling after losing his job, the Patterson family, whose youngest daughter was sick and whose parents were drowning in medical bills. Word had spread. More people needed help. More people were alone, forgotten, struggling in silence. So Malik had expanded. He'd quit the gas station and the loading dock. The house Cornelius left him had become more than just property. It had become a community center, a place where people could gather, eat together, share their struggles. Malik had used part of the trust money to start a nonprofit, Hargrove's Table, named after the man who taught him that everyone deserves to be seen. Dad, we're going to be late, Jalen called from the car. Coming! They drove through the neighborhood, making stops. Each delivery was the same. Knock 3 times, wait patiently, share a meal, listen to stories. Some people answered right away. Some took convincing. Some never opened the door. But Malik kept showing up. At their last stop, an elderly woman named Miss Dorothy invited them inside. She'd been a teacher for 40 years before retirement left her isolated and depressed. Now she tutored Jalen in math twice a week, and in return, he taught her how to use a smartphone to video call her grandchildren. You're making a difference, she told Malik as they prepared to leave. Cornelius would be proud. I hope so. I know so. He told me before he passed, said you reminded him why life was worth fighting for. The words settled warm in Malik's chest. Back home, there was mail waiting, official-looking envelopes. Malik opened the first one carefully. It was from the mayor's office, an invitation to speak at a community service event, recognition for the work Hargrove's Table was doing in underserved neighborhoods. The second envelope was from a local news station. They wanted to do a feature story. Singledad's breakfast ritual saves community. Malik set both aside. The recognition was nice, but it wasn't why he did this. He did it because somewhere in Atlanta there was someone eating alone, someone forgotten, someone who just needed to know that somebody cared. His phone rang. Diana Okonkwo. Malik, I have news. The final asset distribution from the Stokes case is complete. The employees received their full restitution, and there's a surplus, money Stokes had hidden that the prosecutors recovered. The judge allocated it to charitable causes. Hargrove's table is receiving a grant, $50,000 to expand operations. Malik sat down hard. $50,000? Cornelius's testimony made it possible. The judge specifically cited your work as an example of the community impact he wanted to support. After she hung up, Malik sat in the quiet kitchen of the house that had changed his life. He thought about that first morning, 6 months before Cornelius passed, when he'd knocked on a stranger's door with a basket of eggs. Thought about all the times he'd wanted to quit, all the moments doubt had crept in. Thought about Jalen watching, learning that kindness wasn't weakness. His son appeared in the doorway. "Dad, there's someone at the door." Malik went to answer it. A young woman stood on the porch, nervous, clutching a piece of paper. "Are you Malik Rivers?" "Yes, ma'am." "I heard about what you do, the breakfast deliveries, the help you give people." Her voice cracked. "My mom is sick. She lives alone. I work 2 jobs and can't check on her every day. I was wondering if maybe—" "Give me her address," Malik said gently. "We'll add her to the route." The woman's relief was visible. "Thank you. Thank you so much." After she left, Jalen looked up at his father. "Are we going to help everyone who asks?" "We're going to try, son. We're going to try." That night, Malik stood in Cornelius's old study, his study now, looking at the photograph on the desk. It was from Cornelius's birthday, the one celebration they'd shared before everything changed. The old man was smiling, genuinely smiling, with Malik and Jalen on either side. Malik had framed it, put it where he could see it every day. "We kept our promise," he said to the photograph. "We're still showing up, still bringing breakfast, still refusing to let people be forgotten." Outside, the neighborhood was settling into evening. Lights flickered on in windows, families gathered for dinner. Life continued, ordinary and extraordinary all at once. Malik's phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. "Saw your story in the news. My grandfather is alone and needs help. Can you visit him?" Malik smiled, typed back, "Send me the address. I'll be there tomorrow morning." Because that's what you did. You showed up. You brought breakfast. You reminded people they mattered. One basket at a time, one conversation at a time, one act of kindness at a time. Cornelius had taught him that, had shown him through his own transformation that it was never too late to fight for what mattered, never too late to let someone in, never too late to choose courage over fear. And now, Malik was teaching others. The work wasn't finished, probably never would be. There would always be someone struggling, someone alone, someone who needed to know they weren't forgotten. But that was okay, because Malik had learned the secret Cornelius had discovered too late and reclaimed just in time. The greatest wealth wasn't in bank accounts or real estate or recognition. It was in the lives you touched, the people you saved, the hope you created by refusing to walk away. He picked up the photograph, traced Cornelius's smile with his finger. "Thank you," he whispered, "for trusting me, for fighting back, for teaching us that breakfast can change the world." Tomorrow morning, he'd wake at 4:30, make eggs and oatmeal and fresh fruit, load baskets into Cornelius's old Honda, drive through neighborhoods where people needed hope, and he'd knock 3 times on doors that might not answer. Because that's what love looked like, persistent, patient, present, one breakfast at a time. The story doesn't end here. It ripples forward through every life touched, every person reminded they matter, every act of kindness that refuses to quit. This is what transformation looks like. This is what courage costs. This is what one person's choice to show up can create. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that small acts matter, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories that inspire. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us about a time someone showed up for you or when you showed up for someone else. Your story might inspire others to start their own ripple of kindness, because we're all just one breakfast basket away from changing a life. What will you deliver tomorrow?